Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your gamble for the 2021-22 Fantasy Premier League season. My name is Dan and today we are going to talk about some differentials for you to use, whether you're using them in your wildcard, whether you want to just pick a differential, you want that spicy player that's going to spice up your team, whether you want to impress your mates in your mini league or whatever. I like a differential a lot. I like picking out that player who is, people haven't really thought of yet. So all of these players are under 5% owned. I'm going to go through them in order of most owned to least owned, and there's some really interesting ones in there. Some of them you would have already considered, some of them I don't think you would have even really have considered at all, really. So yeah, hopefully this is going to be a really interesting video. If you do enjoy it, please do leave a like and subscribe as well. We are going to return to normal content next week, but over the international break there's a little bit more time. We can do some fun videos like this. So yeah, hopefully you enjoy what you see today, and without further ado, let's go through them from the 8th most owned, well yeah, the most owned out of the 8 all the way down to the least owned at 0.01% owned or something stupidly low like that. Let's do it. So our first player is Hwang 3.8% owned. He's 5.6 million. I'm sure a few of you guys have heard of this guy by now for Wolves. He's been banging in a couple of goals. 3 goals in 4 matches so far. He didn't start the first 2 of those 4 matches, but the last 2 games he has started both. So we do expect that he is going to come into this Wolves team, and he's probably here to stay. He's perhaps not as nailed on as Jimenez, but what we can see is that he is matching Jimenez in terms of XG and some of the shooting statistics over the last few games where he has been playing. So even though he's played slightly less minutes than Jimenez, he's matching him for those shooting stats. So it's the amount of shots, shots on target, shots in the box, things like that. So it's really, really nice to see. So to go for a player who is so much cheaper and still scoring the same amount of goals, getting the same amount of chances. I know a lot of you guys will probably want Jimenez or be thinking about going for Jimenez. This is another option you can go for considerable less amount of money. If you want to try and, find a little bit of a cheaper player there who enables you to spend a little bit more money elsewhere, or maybe your budget is a little bit tighter, you want to make one transfer, you can't afford to go for Jimenez, you want to take advantage of these Wolves fixtures. They've got Aston Villa next, then Leeds, Everton, Crystal Palace, West Ham, and then Norwich and Burnley in game weeks 13 and 14. So it's quite nice to pick a player now who is really good for those fixtures a little bit later down the line. He's in hot form. He is revolutionising this Wolves attack a little bit. We've seen some, I guess, lack of goal scoring ability in this Wolves team, and then Hwang comes in and he's doing so well. So someone to definitely consider. Next, we've got Ben Chilwell, 3.7% owned. I think you kind of got to be a little bit brave to go for this one. I'm sure you'll agree. You've got to be really, really brave to go for this one. But he is a really cheap price. I think he started the season at 6 million. He's now down to 5.6 million because so many people started off the season with Chilwell in their team because we thought, yeah, Chelsea, really good defence. Chilwell was the main starting left back. We all kind of expected Chilwell to come into this team eventually. Is now the time where Chilwell is going to be the main guy. We've seen Alonso kind of drop off in form, not playing so well. Chilwell comes into the team for this for the last game against Southampton and does super well. Not even exaggerating, he's done so well in that game against Southampton. So over the 90 minutes that he played, he got 4 shots, all of which were in the box. He got 1 big chance, 0.81 expected goals, 1 goal, 3 key passes, 0.27 expected assists. And we know with those Chelsea fullbacks that they really do get very far forward, and other than Lukaku, if you're looking for attacking returns, it's the fullbacks you want to be targeting rather than those midfielders, especially if you want, a little bit more consistency in them playing. Now the question is, do you think Chilwell is going to get enough game time? He's 5.6 million, so he is cheaper than some of the more nailed options. If we're talking about Rudiger or Azpilicueta, Ben Chilwell is a little bit cheaper than those, so you could go for him if maybe your budget's a little bit tighter, or maybe you just fancy a real risk. Now, what I would say that if you do buy Chilwell, you need to cover it with your bench. You need to have a player or two on your bench that can come on and cover it. Maybe it's a Duffy or a Livramento or someone like that, because we do know that Chilwell is not going to play every single game. He did get rotated a little bit last season, but what's great is last season in the Premier League, he only was subbed on for a 1-pointer once last season. In the entirety of last Premier League season, he was only subbed on once, and under Thomas Tuchel, he wasn't subbed on at all. So when he was on the bench, he stayed on the bench, which is great if you can cover it with some of your bench options, because the ceiling here for Chilwell is clearly very, very high. We kind of saw the similar thing with Alonso, but Chilwell a little bit cheaper. Perhaps you think that Chilwell is actually going to be the main left wing back now. If so, and if you can cover it with your bench, with some decent players on your bench as well, this is going to be potentially a really good pick, a real high risk but high reward pick that it could genuinely be the difference between doing okay and doing really well. You know, he could get you, an odd 10-pointer, 12-pointer, something like that, and completely revolutionise your game week over the next few game weeks as long as he plays. So if you can cover it, go for it. If you can't, or you're feeling you want to be a little bit safer, then fair enough. Chilwell is probably not for you, but there is potential here for a really nice, spicy differential for your FPL teams. Next up, we've got Matt Targett, 2.8% owned. He is down to 4.8 million now. He started off the season at 5.8 million. So again, I'm talking a little bit about prices, and the reason why a lot of these players are differentials is because, maybe they started off the season really badly. For example, Matt Targett, a really good example of that, played really, really badly, kind of dropped in the second game as well. He has regained his place in the team since then. He is going to be playing pretty much every single game for Aston Villa. Certainly off the back of last season, we can expect him to play every single game. We do think that Aston Villa are kind of improving defensively. They're going to be a kind of a tricky nut to crack. Martinez, obviously, in goal is a huge factor to that. So there are going to be clean sheets. I know Aston Villa have had some really poor fixtures recently. They've been really bad fixtures. I think after game week 3, we all hopped off Aston Villa players completely, or most of us did, because their fixtures just took a nosedive. But the good thing about getting all of your difficult fixtures out of the way all in a row is that after that we actually start to see a nice run of some nicer fixtures, and that's kind of what we're seeing with Aston Villa. So they've got Wolves up next, Arsenal, West Ham, Southampton, Brighton, Crystal Palace. Other than maybe West Ham, you would say that all of those teams that I just mentioned, especially looking at Brighton, for example, and Arsenal maybe, and maybe perhaps even Wolves as well, all of these teams have kind of struggled to score goals so far this season. I do think Aston Villa are the kind of team who can keep clean sheets against a lot of these teams. I wouldn't be surprised if Aston Villa kind of kept 4 clean sheets over the next 6 games. That could genuinely really happen. So you're going to get clean sheet points there, but you're also going to get a player who is a fullback playing in a wing back position. Of course, now that Aston Villa have kind of switched to a 3 centre-backs formation, that allows a little bit more freedom for those wing-backs to bomb up the field a little bit more. If they continue with that formation, then Matt Targett's going to be able to get in some nice positions, get forward a little bit more, get some crosses in, get some key passes in, maybe even potentially some shots as well. So overall, this could be a really interesting and good time to jump on Targett, or should I say jump back on Targett, because before a lot of us did go for Targett, kind of realised he wasn't the one, but could he be the one now? I'm kind of interested to see. Next up is Adam Armstrong, 2.6% owned. He's 6 million. He's actually got some really, really nice underlying stats in the Premier League. I was kind of surprised, doing these research. I was kind of looking to find those hidden gems in a way. And I think Adam Armstrong could genuinely be a really nice hidden gem. So much so that you guys know I'm on a wild card right now. I have actually tried to see if I could fit him in. In my current draft that I've been tinkering with today, Adam Armstrong actually has made the cut for the final draft. So it's not these differentials are not just, oh, if you're crazy, maybe you could go for one of these. These are genuine picks you should be considering for your teams, It's just that perhaps they're not talked about too much among the FPL community, or, whether you talk about football or fantasy football with your friends. These players aren't talked about a huge amount at the moment, so that's why they're so low owned. But like I said, he's got some really nice underlying stats, but what he's also got is some really nice fixtures coming up. So we've got Leeds, then Burnley, then Watford, then Aston Villa, and then Norwich after that as well. So out of the next 5 games, aside from Aston Villa, all of these teams concede a lot of goals, concede a lot of chances. So potentially you guys will want a forward or an attacking player from Southampton for these fixtures. So the stats in the last 7 games, the only 7 games for Armstrong so far, he's had 21 shots. That's 4th best in the entire Premier League. Only 3 players have had more shots than Adam Armstrong. 12 shots in the box as well, which is pretty nice. That's 9th. He's had 2 big chances. He's got an XG of 1.96 over the season so far, and has also made 6 key passes as well. He's scored 2 goals. I think he got an assist as well, which is a nice bonus. But I just think that these stats, 21 shots, 4th in the whole Premier League, that's really not bad considering the fixtures that Southampton have had to play so far. So out of their 7 games, I guess 6 have been really tough fixtures for Southampton. So Everton, Manchester United, West Ham, Man City, Wolves and Chelsea, they have all been played by Southampton already, and those are difficult fixtures. To get that amount of shots playing against those teams, you got to kind of think that there is something there. There's some potential here for a player like Adam Armstrong, who is clearly a very good player. He did very well in the Championship last season, and he's taken a lot of shots. He's getting a lot of chances in these easier fixtures, particularly against Leeds, Burnley, Watford and Norwich over the next 5. Absolutely amazing. There's surely real potential for a good few goals here. So yeah, I really like Adam Armstrong. He's kind of played 90 minutes in 6 out of 7 of his games that he's played so far as well. So he's very nailed on. When a player is playing 90 minutes pretty much every single game, that gives them more opportunity to score because they're on the pitch for more time. There's a lot to like here. I really do think so. Next up is Phil Foden, 1.7% owned, 7.9 million. Now, I know I have spoken a little bit about Foden already this week, so I won't talk about Foden too much. But he's had 2 big chances in his 3 games that he's played so far. Well, 2.5, I guess, because he came off the bench, in game week, where was it, 5? And then he played Chelsea and then Liverpool in game week 6 and 7. So some very, very difficult fixtures there. Can he do a little bit better in some slightly easier fixtures that he's got coming up? I think so, particularly over the next 3. There is going to be some high scores for some Man City players. It's just going to be a case of which Man City attacker do you go for. I don't have the answer, I don't think, but I think Phil Foden is an option to go for at that kind of the 7 million to 8 million price point. There's not really too much there at the moment. You could arguably go for Jota. But, I'm not fully convinced by that one, to be honest. Am I fully convinced by Foden either? No, not really. He's a huge rotation risk. But I have seen that Manchester City do seem to be rotating less this season than they did last season. Is that a good sign for a player like Foden? Possibly. He is, yes, he's playing kind of wide, but he's kind of cutting in fairly nice and centrally and getting in some good attacking positions. And I don't know, I just think there is potential for some really high scores from Foden. Now, you can see in the next 3 game weeks him banging out a random 15-pointer or something like that. Maybe another game he gets a 1-pointer, comes off the bench or something like that, because typically when Foden is on the bench, he does come on. So you do have that risk for 1-pointers. He's not really a player that you can confidently cover with your bench, because Foden's going to come on for a 1-pointer and your bench is not going to get a sniff in your first 11 anyway. But yeah, it's an interesting differential with some potential for a very high ceiling, which is the kind of thing I like. Okay, next up is Bryan Mbeumo, 1.3 million, 5.5, 1.3% owned, 5.5 million. This one I really like. And when I say I really like it, I mean I really like it. Anyone who's on a wild card here, I would definitely be putting Bryan Mbeumo in your team. A lot of you guys are probably on an Everton midfielder, maybe a Townsend Gray or Decore around this price. I would be throwing all of those out the window and switching to Mbeumo. He is going to be pretty much 100% in my wildcard team. He's one of the most nailed on players in my personal wildcard team. And like I say, I think he should be in yours too. So why? Because he is an out of position midfielder who is a very, very cheap price. He's listed as a midfielder, but he's playing as a forward. The fixtures look amazing after Chelsea and Leicester. So after Chelsea and Leicester, Brentford play Burnley, Norwich, Newcastle, Everton, Tottenham, Leeds and Watford all in a row. That is such a nice run of fixtures for any player, particularly a player with some really nice attacking stats as well. So we'll talk about attacking stats for Mbeumo, and this is where it's really impressive, because a lot of you guys are probably thinking, all right, we want to be looking at a Brentford attacker for this run of fixtures after the next 2. Who are we going to go for? Well, I mean, Tony is the obvious answer, right? If you want an attacker from Brentford, you go for Tony. But in real life, in reality, Mbeumo is actually the main shooting threat at Brentford. He's the main goal-scoring threat in their team, not Tony. It's Mbeumo, and you can get Mbeumo for 1 million cheaper, or almost 1 million cheaper. And he's a midfielder, so he gets extra points for clean sheets, which Brentford seem to be picking up. You get an extra point for scoring goals. It's, there's so many more benefits to going for Mbeumo over a Tony. So let's look at some of these stats. So far this season, in the 7 games so far this season, he's had 17 shots. So he's 9th in the league. Out of all players, he's 9th for shots. He's got 11 shots in the box. He's 12th out of all players. Bearing in mind the fixtures that Brentford have played as well. This is the big one. He has had 5 big chances to score so far. Now, that is 3rd among all players in the Premier League so far this season. That's really, really nice. You're probably expecting players, like, I don't know, Salah and players like that, Mane maybe, to be up there. And yes, they are up there. Maybe you think Ronaldo's up there as well. But Mbeumo is 3rd. third best for big chances. He's had 2.3 expected goals so far, 8 key passes that he's made so far. It's pretty nice as well, and all of this despite some very tricky fixtures. So again, we're looking at players who have had some difficult fixtures, so people have kind of moved away from them, not really thought about them. Now we've got some good fixtures coming up. Really, really nice. Now, maybe you don't have to go for Brian Mbeumo straight away if you're not on a wild card. If you're on a wild card, I would have him ready in your team so you don't have to think about making this transfer later down the line. But if you're not on a wild card right now, just please put Mbeumo in your head. Get ready to bring him in a couple of weeks, because I am really quite convinced that this could be like the bargain for the next sort of 10 game weeks, the bargain to get into your team for sure. So yeah, definitely one to consider. Next is Callum Wilson. We are now at the under 1% owned club. 0.9% owned Callum Wilson is. He's now to 7.3 million. Obviously, he started off the season really well. 2 goals in his first 3 games. He was in my initial team, and he did really well for me in those first 3 games. I was really glad that I put him in my team as a differential, but now he's even more of a differential. Now, what we do know is that when Callum Wilson is fit, he has incredible stats. He does everything for Newcastle. He's their best player. You know, he scores all of their goals, and you know, he just looks like head and shoulders above all of the other players at Newcastle. Maybe you'd say Alan Saint-Maximin, you put him up there as well. But Callum Wilson is the real finisher in that team, the final destination in all of their attacks, or hopefully the final destination in all of their attacks. He really is that good, and I think Newcastle could potentially turn it around when he's back, and he is expected to be back immediately after the international break. So ready for this this Tottenham game. Newcastle are going to hopefully have Wilson back. One to keep an eye on, but it is expected that he's going to be back for the Tottenham game. After Tottenham, they've got Crystal Palace, Chelsea, Brighton, so not amazing in the immediate term, but we've got Brentford, Arsenal, Norwich, Burnley after that. But Norwich and Burnley fixtures kind of in a few game weeks' time. That's going to be really nice for a player like Wilson. The fixtures are mixed. They're not amazing, don't get me wrong, but they are good enough that a player like Callum Wilson, with all the qualities he has, for the new, cheaper price that he is at, I just think this is a really nice potential differential that you could go for, particularly as the mood at Newcastle, they've just had their big takeover at the club. Is the mood going to be different at Newcastle? Is there going to be a new burst of positivity? And if there is that new burst of positivity at the club, who is going to be the main beneficiary of that? A player of the quality of Callum Wilson could very well be that player. So it's a risky one because we haven't got that much data so far this season. We don't know how he's going to slot back into the team when he is fit. But there is definitely something here. Definitely one to keep an eye on, Callum Wilson, for sure. And finally, the biggest differential in this video is Matthias Normann, 0.1% owned. He's a 4.5 million midfielder. I want to give a quick shout out to my brother Jordan for bringing this gem to my attention when I was speaking to him earlier. So I was kind of looking for some gems. He said, have you heard about this guy Normann? He is everything for Norwich. He is just everything for Norwich. So you guys might have heard of this guy. If you've watched Norwich games so far this season, you might recognise him by his bright silver hair. He was, of course, a late signing for Norwich, a loan signing late on in the transfer window. And yeah, like I said, he is Norwich right now. He tops every single, well, not every single stat, but he tops so many important stats when we're talking about FPL and goal scoring and assist making. He tops so many stats for Norwich since he's arrived at the club. So since his first start for Norwich in game week 5, he's had 7 shots, 4 on target, 0.6 expected goals, 4 key passes, 1 big chance created, and 0.62 expected assists. Now, among Norwich players, he is first among all of those stats during this period. So really, really nice. He's already got an assist to his name. He's been involved in 100% of Norwich's goals since arriving. Now, I know that's not hard. Norwich have only scored 1 goal since he arrived, but he is also taking corners and free kicks, which is definitely good. Norwich have a really good run of fixtures coming up. So after the next 2, they've got Leeds, Brentford, Southampton, Wolves, and then Newcastle all in a row. Really, really nice. And before that, Norwich has, again, they're another team who have had tragic fixtures at the start of the season, all in a row. And now that they're out of the way, Norwich have got some good fixtures. Are Norwich going to be able to turn their season around? Look, I'm not going to say Norwich are going to be able to turn their season around, but if they're going to pick up a few points, if they're going to score a couple of goals, if there's going to be a couple of assists to be made, Normann is going to be very much a part of this. Everything is going through him at the moment at Norwich. And for 4.5 million, I think he's a really good bench player for you wildcarders to go for. I know you've probably thought about maybe Douglas Luiz, someone like that, or you go for Brownhill for someone slightly cheaper. But for 4.5 million, super cheap price to get the main source of attacking threat for Norwich for 4.5 million. You know, when we were looking at, you know, Billy Gilmore, for example, everyone was saying at Norwich, you know, everything's going to go through him. He's going to be the great bargain at 4.5 million. It actually looks like Normann is going to be what we hoped Billy Gilmore would be, I guess. And with the new fixtures that are coming up on your wildcard, guys, if you want to pick up that 4.5 million midfielder, this is the one. But yeah, I probably wouldn't waste the transfer on bringing Normann in unless you've got transfers to waste, transfers to burn. Yeah, I like this one a lot for a 4.5 million midfielder. I think he is potentially the best 4.5 million midfielder you can possibly go for, and he's only 0.1% owned, massively under the radar. So yeah, hopefully that's a nice little differential for you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do leave a like and subscribe. We are on the road to 100k subscribers. I think there was some pretty good differentials in here. Let me know which one your favourite one was of the list that I mentioned today. And if you've got any other differentials you'd like to share with the group, pop them down in the comments and I'll have a read through them and see what you guys can come up with as well. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Plenty more content to come over the international break. If you're bored, you just want to consume more FPL, even when FPL isn't really on, then yeah, I'm going to be here for you guys. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.